Welcome, Spurs fans, to another edition of Casa De Spurs. I'm your host, Trace Ronning, joined by Stephen Hale. Stephen, we haven't seen the Spurs play in over a week at this point, or something like that.
Getting some withdrawals here, man.
I know, it's like I can plan for it in the off season, but when it happens in the middle of February,
not happy about
what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, it's like I don't know what I'm supposed to do with my hands.
Yeah, as you may have heard, the Spurs had 4 players test positive for COVID-19. So after the game in Charlotte, and they have postponed all their games up to the 24th. Mm-hmm. So we don't have a lot of breaking news to cover, except, well, here's one thing. This may surprise you. It may not surprise you, but Stephen, no San Antonio Spurs were elected to the Western Conference AllStar team this year. Don't know if there's, other than DeMar DeRozan, I don't know if you could call any of those snubbing, but I think DeMar DeRozan, you can consider that a snubbing. Was he snubbed?
Yeah, I would. So all the All-Stars have been announced, right? I mean, he's officially snubbed, or just from the starters? I mean,
as far as I know, it's just the starters. So the reserves are going to be announced on the 23rd.
The 23rd, but I'm already looking forward to this official snubbing, so to speak. DeMar, look, we love DeMar, and I think DeMar actually has played at an all-star level. I don't know if he'll have the games or the official numbers to get in, but he's the all-star for the Spurs. I mean, he's the closest thing that they have. He's again in playing a guard forward wing position in a loaded Western Conference on a team that is featuring some younger guys, and so his role and his minutes, we've talked a little bit about some of his deficiencies. We have seen his 3-point numbers go up a little bit, but then again, that's from virtually nothing. So any improvement is an improvement. But yeah, it's a tough go of it for him. I don't think he's actually going to sneak in, but I will say that I've been pleasantly surprised that at least he's on the fringe again this year. He's one of the guys that I've heard some local analysts and journalists talk like, well, there's also DeMar DeRozan, and he's definitely there. Like he's on the cusp, but you know, it's tough to be an all-star. And I think this is a good reminder, Trace, of how people just throw out like, oh, this guy's an all-star. Like it's really hard to make an all-star team. And case in point right here with our man, DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah. It's hard for me to say that DeMar DeRozan was snubbed. He's not an all-star starter at this stage of his career. Or I don't know if he ever really was an all-star starter. But here's the top 3 vote getters were Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, and Damian Lillard. And that makes sense.
Sure.
But only two of them can be starters. Yep. So you already have a controversy because Dame got left off the starters. It was Luka over Dame. And I don't know exactly how the NBA weighs the fan vote versus the media vote versus the player vote. I can tell you this, though. DeMar DeRozan got 20 votes from other players in the league to be an all-star starter.
Which from most of his teammates.
Which was 10th most among all players in the Western Conference.
That's good.
Yep. He got zero votes from the media. The media only voted for 4 players. The only players that got votes to be a starter in the backcourt were Steph Curry, Luka, Dame, and Donovan Mitchell. Those are the only 4 that got any votes there. So,
and good point. Regardless of how you feel about those guys, like they're all playing better than DeMar DeRozan is, and it's not particularly close. Like that's how far the gap is. I mean. It's just reality of the situation.
Right. Here's the thing that bothers me. Well, I don't like fan voting. I
hate fan voting.
Fan voting is stupid. So would you like to hear a list of a few players who got more votes than DeMar DeRozan from the fans?
I am, but is Alex Caruso on that list to start?
Alex Caruso got 90,000 more votes than DeMar DeRozan. Klay Thompson, who you may remember is not playing basketball this year.
Had a great year.
Has received more votes than DeMar DeRozan. Yeah.
Who else?
CJ McCollum actually got more votes than DeMar DeRozan. CJ McCollum, I think is CJ McCollum's a fine player, but he's also been hurt. He's not playing. He hasn't played for a while. He's also not better than DeMar.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't know that CJ McCollum is a better basketball player than DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah, and
And
then
CJ McCollum is a fine basketball
he's a fine basketball player. One other player of note, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander received 8,000 more votes than DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah. So this is DeMar's biggest challenge, right? Is not only is he playing in the Western Conference, but he's also playing for the San Antonio Spurs, who are also rebuilding, and so much of what it's a popularity contest, and I don't think it's just a popularity contest against fans. I think it's a popularity contest against the media, and I would also say too, like, shame on anybody who's not paying attention to what's going on in San Antonio this year, because this is a new Spurs team. It's a new Spurs roster. Their style of play is new. Like, everything that we thought we knew about the San Antonio Spurs, and I say we is just a very loose term, but anybody who's just dismissing them is really doing themselves a disservice. I think that DeMar DeRozan, if you took his current play and just picked him up out of the San Antonio Spurs and just put that same level of play into a more like what if he was on the Denver Nuggets? Like, I think he's getting some serious all-star consideration, because right now the Denver Nuggets are fun to watch. The same with the Utah Jazz. I think if you put him next to another star, like if he were next to a guy like a Chris Paul, or even next to like a Kyle Lowry, well, in Toronto, like, but he just doesn't have, like, he's not drawing enough attention and star power to him. And so because of that, when the spotlight is scrolling by, it doesn't even pick up DeMar DeRozan. I think I always get the word mixed up. Is it travesty or tragedy, or it's shameful. It's a shame. We'll just say that. But he deserves more attention. And, I think as you start looking into who's going to get that 11th and 12th spot, I mean, you can easily make a case for DeMar DeRozan to be there.
Yeah. He happens to play in an incredibly guard-heavy Western Conference right now as well, so it's going to be hard. Here's actually what really bothers me, is that LaMarcus Aldridge has more votes than Jakob Poeltl in the front court.
That's just dumb. There's no reason for that.
No.
Like, we don't even know if LaMarcus Aldridge is good enough to be an NBA starter anymore. Oof.
He got 16 player votes 16 players voted for LaMarcus Aldridge to be a starter.
I'd like to know who those 16 players are.
Maybe there are some behind the scenes voting from players that want their teams to trade for LaMarcus Aldridge, whether that's wise or not. Maybe Damian Lillard voted for LaMarcus Aldridge. You got CJ to vote for him as well. Try to bring some guys over there. Trying
to make a little push here. Right. I have a question for you. What do you think about this? I mean, Greg Popovich we're fortunate enough to watch one of the best coaches of all time currently at his craft, right? And when Greg Popovich speaks, doesn't matter what the topic is for. It doesn't matter if he's talking about basketball or he's talking about politics or coronavirus or anything like that, but he has a voice and people listen to that voice. Mm-hmm. I just feel like if you're sitting here with that type of a platform and with that type of an audience, do you think, Trace, maybe he should be vouching for his guy a little bit more? Like, why? I would love to hear Greg Popovich be like, I just say very simply, like, DeMar DeRozan's playing at an all-star level.
Yeah.
Like a simple statement like that. I think that would not only help his all-star case, but for anybody that's really hoping that DeMar DeRozan signs with this team, even if it's not on a max deal, I mean, I would think that would help. That would probably motivate DeMar to be like, man, my coach just called me an all-star player. Like, yeah, I'll take a 3 for 80 deal. Like, I don't know. What do you think about that?
It's an interesting question. I've never really thought about that before. I mean, like, Pop's the kind of guy that strikes me. It's like, I'm sure he's had private conversations with DeMar. Like, I hope you don't give a shit about this, because you know that I don't give a shit about this. Right. And like, we shouldn't care about this. I think, here's what I think. I think maybe, if it wasn't, it's so questionable that they're even having an all-star game right now. It really is, like, whether or not you believe that the coronavirus is as serious as it is, which is not what this podcast is all about, but the NBA has made a clear stance on no fans, none of this. Like, we're going to have a very no nonsense NBA season this year. but we're gonna do the All-Star game, and
we're gonna do an All-Star game.
We're gonna fly in everyone's families, and like
yeah,
only some of their families, but like we're gonna make all these people enter into a bubble of sorts for however long the festivities are going to take place, and it just flies in the face of every single thing that they've like tried to, I don't know, like
it's a very
cobble
mixed
together.
message.
Yeah, it's a very mixed message, and
especially
obviously
since they're doing it in Atlanta, which like hello strip clubs, like
yeah.
for All-Star Weekend.
Yeah, it's I, you know, in my opinion, it's a bad look. And a lot of the players, like some of the most high profile players in the league are on, you know, very loudly outspoken about how dumb it is that they're even doing an All-Star game.
Right.
So it
which I really like, by the way.
Yeah, I'm happy that they're using the platform to that. In another year, I would maybe say, yeah, Pop, it'd be nice if he'd stick up for the players a little more. In this one, I think it might be a little hypocritical for him to go to bat for wanting more players on his team to go to an event that he doesn't even really seem that he's fully on board with having happen anyways.
And that's a good point. And I think too, I don't want to make it sound like I'm trying to blame Greg Popovich for why DeMar DeRozan is not
Sure.
an all-star. Like I have plenty of qualms with Gregory. This is not one of them. But I just think like that's a play that might sit in your back pocket, and depending on what the future looks like with DeMar, and I think Trace, where we're at too, it's like at least we're talking that he's in consideration again. Like he's played good enough where he deserves to be on the fringe. Like maybe he doesn't get in as the 11th or 12th guy, but he's very close to being like the 13th or the 14th guy. And so I think DeMar has a unique opportunity in front of him to really like look at this next chapter of his life and or of his career and see where that flows into. And I think Greg Popovich could do that too. So maybe he doesn't get an all-star bid, but he's certainly not like, you know, we've been saying he's top 40. Like we've been pushing him further down the trajectory of how good this guy is. And the reality is he's probably in that like top 24, 25-ish range, as opposed to being a top 40 player. Yeah. And if that's the case, I would hope that Greg Popovich looks at the totality of this and goes, well, maybe I'm not making a bid for my guy to just be an all-star. Maybe I'm trying to keep a top 25 player on my roster in the future moving forward. So it's just a little bit of strategy there that I'm curious to see like how that all plays out and see where it ends up.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I've never thought about that before. And I don't know that I've ever seen a coach really lobby for a player like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if are there rules against talking up your own player?
I don't know. Is that tampering? Is that a tampering flaw there? Yeah.
But you know, the last thing I'll say about this is I wasn't planning. I never watched the All-Star game. This is not going to change whether or not I watch the All-Star game. So
yeah, I honestly don't care about the All-Star. And I think All-Star Weekend in general, like, okay, I guess we're talking about the All-Star Weekend on this podcast, but I think the All-Star Weekend in general has become a little bit of, it's so gimmicky. It's it's like everyone has done, I don't know what dunk we're going to see that's going to really warrant a 50 now.
Yeah.
Like we've seen everything. Like we've seen guys jump over cars, jump off from the free throw line. Like now it doesn't mean anything, like that you can put the ball between your legs and do anything. Like we've seen it all. So it's just a gimmick. The most interesting and exciting thing to me about the entire All-Star Weekend is the 3-point contest, because I think that's like the last like legitimate entertaining skill that remains. Nobody cares about the actual All-Star game, even, and what they've been trying to do with like points. So in general, like the All-Star Weekend is already a little bit silly, but then they've made it even more silly by doing it in the middle of a global pandemic after telling everybody like how important it is that we socially distance. So whatever.
On that note, so the Spurs, as we know, are down a few players right now due to coronavirus. This just so happens to coincide with the recall of Luka Samanic and Trey Jones. I don't think they're actually coincidental at all. I think that means the Spurs are probably expecting to be without a couple guys for and maybe another week or so. Not to really speculate on who those players are because it's impossible to figure that out. But
Right.
Luka has looked really strong in his G League experience this year, and we've seen this before. I don't like to get excited about things about G League performance because it's not the indicator of future performance that you'd like it to be. But that said, you've been watching Luka in the, whether they're calling it the gubble. I really don't like
The
that.
gubble. Yeah.
Really,
kind of silly.
It's like, somehow some people hate the word moist. To me, like, I hate the word gubble, whatever it is. Anyway, he's looked good at, any expectations for what Luka can and should do if he gets playing time with the Spurs in the next week or so?
Well, you had a great tweet. I want to say maybe it was a week ago or so. I'd have to find it every day. Your tweets are gold. Mine are bronze at best. But you mentioned, like, why are we? It was something to the effect of, like, are we really that surprised or impressed that Luka's doing that? Like, he's been doing the same thing like last year in the G League. Yeah. The game has obviously gotten faster. It's gotten that. So to go put up points, I mean, he's been putting up like 30 and 16. Like, those are good numbers. I'm not trying to diminish anything from the guy, but it still is the G League, and it still is a makeshift G League in the bubble. Like, it's not the NBA for a reason. So on one hand, we have to be excited that he is doing these things in the G League. And the same goes for Trey Jones. I think Trey Jones has been phenomenal in the G League. But at the same time, it's the G League. Like, that's just what it is. So I hope that both of them get to get some minutes in the coming days, which they should, if the Spurs are carrying around, whatever it is, 14 guys on their active roster, and they're down 4, and then they get 2 back. Like, they're gonna have a 12-man rotation. Like, they should have that. And then if Aldridge is out and they're down to an 11-man rotation, like, both of those guys stand to get some minutes. The thing about Luka is he and Lonnie are so interesting to me, because those two guys in particular, the Spurs have never really had a guy of their caliber as far as what their potential is. Now, all the guys have potentials. All the guys are interesting. Lonnie is probably the greatest athlete that has ever come through in a San Antonio Spurs uniform. And so Spurs fans are chomping at the bits about that. But Luka really is, like, we use this term a lot, but he really is kind of like a unicorn. This is a guy who's a legitimate stretch 5 one day, and he can handle the ball, he can shoot the ball, and he's got some actual, he's got skill set to him. The question is if he's going to be able to put all this together. And I think that's why your tweet was so fabulous, is like, why are we overselling what he's doing in the G League just to get him to be just to get him to an even playing field? He's got so much room to go and so much room to grow that it's really important that we don't be too premature on this. So yeah, I hope we get to see the guy get some minutes, but he's still a G League player. Like, he's still getting assigned to the G League. Like, that's a reality. Sorry, I have a fly in my house, but if he were ready, he wouldn't need the G League. And so he's clearly not ready yet. And that's okay, but that's where we're at.
Couple points though. Yeah. So what I was talking about was, like, last year in the G League, Luka averaged 15 points a game and just under 8 boards. So far this year, he's averaging 21 points and 11 boards, which is better. But
Great.
what we're talking about, like, again, like, to your point, like, we're still talking about he's playing against G League competition. And the other thing is he's 21 years old now. So, like, he's still baking. He's not done. And the other, nope, lost my train of thought. But Trey Jones, I think that him being younger and getting those minutes in Austin is probably, I'm not expecting really to see Trey Jones. I think they probably just need a warm body on the end of the bench. Right. I almost wish that he hadn't been called back up to the Spurs, because I'd like to see more. I just like him to get, he's not going to get, what is he getting, like 30 minutes a night in Austin or something like that? Like, he's not gonna get that. I remember my other point was, there's a reason Devin Vassell is a rookie playing significant minutes with the Spurs, and Luka is a second-year player not playing with the Spurs. Like, He was drafted to be NBA ready. Luka was not drafted to be NBA ready, which is another thing. Like I think the Spurs, maybe more than a lot of other teams in the league, don't draft players to be NBA ready necessarily, which can be frustrating when you see. I still wish that the Spurs would have drafted Brandon Clark last year. I know his shot looks bizarre is probably the nicest thing I can say about the way he makes a jump shot, but he's been starting for a Memphis Grizzlies team that, if nothing else, has been exciting at least for the last 2 seasons. So I'm not a GM. I don't know, man. I just have to understand that, like, the Spurs are not drafting. The Spurs were never drafting to compete this year. Memphis maybe thought they were going to be competing this year, but San Antonio didn't.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is, like, if the San Antonio Spurs are sitting there and they liked this guy Luka, and they really, like, he was their project. Think of it this way: they were scouting Luka for a while. That year they took him, they had 2 first-round draft picks. So in their mind, they're sitting here going, like, we're playing with house money a little bit. Like, Luka's our guy. We're going to take him at 29. Right. Or whatever their pick was, whatever they thought their 1 pick was going to be. And then now suddenly they have 2 draft picks. Right. So now you can kind of roll the dice and be like, well, somebody's going to fall to us at 29, but Luka's our guy. So they really took a project early. Like, that's what they did. They didn't draft him to be the number 19th pick. He was their guy. And Keldon Johnson was like a convenience, and he turned out to be great. But what we've seen is, like, the 29th pick in the draft has turned out to be very fruitful. And the 19th pick in the draft is like, I don't know about that. And I think it's just important for us to remember, like, Luka might not have been drafted at number 19 by another team, but he was going to be drafted as a project wherever he went. So the price that they paid for that is a little bit of an overpay to get your guy, but they also had a security blanket. And if you look back at that draft, the very simple fact that they have Keldon Johnson means they didn't lose that draft. They won that draft, and kudos to them for doing that. But we also are pushing Luka into a category that he has no business being in right now, saying that he's going to be like XYZ as good as he is. No, he's in the G League for a reason, and that's perfectly okay. And he just needs time. Like you said, he's 21. There's some players that play at, Anthony Edwards right now is NBA ready, but he's also an anomaly. And Luka is not that. So let the guy cook in the oven. Maybe he gets some minutes. But I'm excited. If it all works out well, the Spurs could have a real fun player for a long time to come.
You got to wonder a little bit because when we've seen him in the NBA with the Spurs, he just looks kind of terrified. Maybe he doesn't look that way at all when you see the way he plays with the Austin Spurs. And so I don't like. Part of me wonders: is there something going on in his head, or is it just like? Or is it just the fact that the G League is that much further away from, like, the NBA in terms of overall all skill? Like, the NBA just might be too fast for him at this point. In which case, it's probably good that he's going to get G League minutes. I would assume that's probably like the next best level of competition you can get before going to the NBA. Maybe there's some Euro leagues but we wouldn't have taken him away from the Euro League, put him in the G League if that wasn't where the Spurs thought he could be best. I don't know, baked.
Yeah, he's young. He's in a new country. He's playing in a league where the gap between the G League and the NBA is really wide. So none of this is really out of our realm of expectation why he would be a slow start. I just hope, and we're not at a point of calling him a bust. So he's still got at least a good year and a half, maybe 2, before we even start using the B word on this guy. But at the same time, we've really got to temper these expectations and not get so excited when a 21-year-old player goes and scores 30 points and gets 16 rebounds in the G League. Like, all right, sure. Just pump the brakes a little bit. But hopefully they get some minutes.
Yeah, we'll be interested to see. So the Spurs are scheduled to play their next game on February 24th. So hopefully they don't have to call that off. Hopefully the Spurs can the rodeo road trip, 3 games. Three games in 2 weeks.
We go 3-0.
3-0 on the rodeo road trip. You heard it here first. That was our prediction last week. They were going to undefeated, right?
I like it. It's strong.
Anyway, if the Spurs do not get to play, then we'll see if Luka gets any minutes, or if they're going to send him right back down as soon as they get get healthy again. Guess we'll have to just wait and find out. There's really not a lot that I don't know. My inside sources don't really have a lot on what's going on with the coronavirus situation.
No, my sources are awful. I need new ones.
All right, Steven, it's been good chatting about the Spurs as usual. Hopefully next week will be a little less weird and we'll actually get to talk about some games again.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. In the meantime, go Spurs, go. Hope you're back on the 24th.
Go Spurs, go!